All right, we got the. All right. Good morning, Andy.
There
How are
we go.
you? How are you
Good
today?
morning, Jim. Hope it was a good evening for you, and stage is set for a good day today. I'm really good.
Uh, I didn't do anything with the Warriors Rockets game, and I was intending to play in game. A lot of in game betting with, especially in basketball.
Right,
It's really profitable to do that. But
especially the
the way
NBA.
that the way
Especially
the
the
way
NBA.
pardon me. I'm
I say
sorry.
especially in the NBA. I was going to say
Absolutely.
especially in the NBA, the in-game wagering. College, not quite as much because roles tend to be more one-sided in most college. In most college games. In the NBA, I'd say probably two-thirds to three-quarters of the games, each team has to lead by 5 points or more at some point.
There's these long runs that take place. I mean, the team
Yeah,
will go off with 15 in a row, and then I mean that one game, the Knicks went up, they scored 21 straight. I mean, it's
21
crazy
nothing.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff. So I saw the Rockets started with a lot of intensity, a lot of pressure on the ball. Of course, Steph handles the ball a lot, so they were putting a lot of pressure on him. He was getting double and triple teamed, and he's not a big guy. And some of the other guards, the defensive guards, are bigger. So he's having all kinds of problems. They're turning over. All of a sudden, it's an 18-point lead. And I'm looking at this and say, normally I'm coming back on the Warriors here, but then they called the second foul on Steph. And I said, we're only in the
Yep.
first 8 minutes, and he's got two fouls. And he can't get a shot off. They're not able to pass the ball. They're not setting up any plays. It looks like I'm staying away from this thing. And so I'm looking at the live lines on it. You can take 12, you can take 13. I'm saying, I'm just not going to do it. And I didn't.
No.
And yeah, if you'd have taken 15, 15 and a half, which was available, you'd have covered. But that wasn't. The other game was interesting to me because although I
But by
felt.
the way, just a moment on that game. I was going to say on that game, on the Houston game, I did have a money line play on Golden State just because I couldn't pass up the plus 150 on that, and I felt that they had a chance. But it was over. It was clearly over fairly early in that first quarter. I ended up getting out of that money line play and basically took a small loss and continued the rest of the way because you could see as the game was unfolding, Golden State knew that it didn't really need to win. Let's conserve our energy. Let's concede. They're basically conceding the game. They'll still go out there and shoot and run their offense and defense and everything, but they've got two more chances to win, and their best chance would be back home in Game 6, and if it happens to go to a Game 7, they already won comfortably in Houston in Game 1. They know they can do it.
And that's exactly what I saw that they did actually at that point in the first half. They just conceded the game, and it was
Yeah.
the Rockets are younger, physical, quicker, and even though they don't have the depth of experience, but they have a lot of talent, and they're down the road. They could be a good team. Um, I just felt that wasn't it. So, but the other game where I thought the Lakers would have, this was the best spot for the Lakers to play well. And, even if you look at the zigzag and you back home and the coaching mistakes that JJ made and all that, the
Yeah.
line went to 7 from 4. And I said, what? This is ridiculous. I cannot lay 7 points with this team. They're the inferior team. They're the older team. They don't have any strength
The
down
tired
low.
team.
The tired team. I can't lay 7 with this team. The right side, the value play in this team is the Wolves, and I'm on the Wolves. And it turned out well. I mean, it was close at the end, but
I ended up
it was never in danger of the Lakers if they won the game
in
that they
doubt.
were going to cover it.
Yeah.
So, and now we go on
Yeah,
to.
I was going to say I ended up doing. I played the total over, and look, it was close all the way. And then they had that 38-point fourth quarter, and the game ended up staying under the total. By the way, games do not go under; they stay under. They start under, they stay under, unless they go over. But in any event, I also did take the points with Minnesota because they are the better team, and again, they did have the extra rest, but you really had to wonder how much fatigue would have set in that fourth quarter with the Lakers because they had played those 24 minutes in the second half a few days earlier, and meanwhile, even though time had passed, Minnesota was clearly the fresher team, and you could tell that all game.
And they're deeper and they're younger.
Yeah.
And it all adds up. I mean, these guys have played. Granted, we have the load management now that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago, and these teams do get a little bit more rest per player. They kind of manage it out. I don't love it, but I understand it. But this is a long season. I mean, when you play half of what baseball plays, but it's a different intensity. Baseball's a more moderate sport, physicality wise. So in any case, Minnesota moves on, and the Lakers go home, and they got to figure out what the hell they're going to do with that roster because you do have one of the stars on your team is older than the normal basketball player, but he's incredibly physically in shape. But and then you have the other guy that can score to help but doesn't play defense. That's in Luka. You have no center that really.
That's the concern.
There's nobody down low. They got a lot of work to do. Now we go into 2 games today, Andy, and I was going to look at playing both unders, but then I do a lot of research and I was reading what Thibodeau has been saying, and he comes out and says, "Well, I'm not too happy with how we're getting off in the game, and we got to pick up the pace. We got to start moving." And I said, "Well, there goes my under idea. I'm not going to do that." And, what does it mean that he picks up the pace? Does it mean he picks up the pace and they score? Does it mean he picks up the pace and they turn the ball over and the other team scores? So I said, okay, I'm going to get away from that idea. So what do you think about these 2 games today?
I'm with you on that. I do like the under in the second game.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you can see it in the line move, 14 down to 12. Yeah, I can see that in the line move. Yeah. And by the way, I'll just throw this in, and I think I need to.
I took a look at, go ahead.
John Rodoon and Greg do a great job with the horse racing, and we got the Kentucky Derby this weekend.
Kentucky Derby.
And we have a great podcast up at Proline TV, and you should go there. Watch the podcast on the horse racing. It's amazing. We pick some horses. They give some winners. John is excellent at doing that. And he's a real asset to our site and great guy, by the way. And go there, watch it, like it, subscribe to it, get the bells ringing. And I think you'll enjoy it. And very likely you'll make some money. So that's a little promo for the site. And as far as the next round, I mentioned.
Well, let me do a little bit about these 2 games, because my concern for the Knicks is that when they stepped up in class this year against the Bostons, against the Clevelands, against the OKCs, and some of the other teams, they really struggled. They could not beat those teams. Now, I'm not saying Detroit is such a team, because clearly they're not. They're a young, up-and-coming team with a very bright future. My concern for the Knicks here would be that they have an opportunity to close out the game, but given the fact that they struggled against the better teams, you would almost consider this a pressure situation that they might face down the road. Detroit is loose. They're playing with house money to a certain extent. Of course, we heard Cunningham said, we're coming back to the Garden for a Game 7. So I'm not quite sure that I can do anything with tonight's game, Knicks game, other than possibly look for the over the total, because Detroit has to take it as a sign of desperation. They can't afford to waste too many possessions, and so they may very much agree with Thibodeau's up-tempo pace for the Knicks, because that may be their best chance because of the fact that they do have an ability to score, and I think they're a little bit better balanced than a lot of people give them credit for. As far as the late game, it's almost like the Clippers, and it's almost like the Lakers in Minnesota, where is Denver the better team? I'm not so sure that they are, but should they be getting 7 points? Well, we saw, I think it was in game 3 after Denver won the first 2 games. Clippers came back and played arguably one of their best games of the season. They blew out Denver in game 3. So I wouldn't be surprised by a great effort by the Clippers. I think the quote unquote value, I think, is with Denver, but they are very much like Golden State. They know that if they don't win this game, they have 2 more cracks. They'll have another crack at it back home in game 7 in Denver. But the under in this game is the one that attracts me. If you look at the scoring in this series, you had, what was it? I think 222 or something in the first game, but that was the game that went to overtime at 98. So they only scored 196. Second game, they scored 207. And then they go into LA and they scored 200 in games 2 and games 3, the same 200 points. And then the outlier was the Denver blowout win the other night when they totaled 246. So this being, game 5, I've always maintained when the series is 2-2, that's a critical game because game 5 determines which team is going to face elimination in game 6. So in game 6, now the team that faces elimination, in this case the Clippers, and they are playing at home, they have to be careful. They don't want to get they don't want to go into those slumps where they give up an 8-0 run to Denver and are forced to play from behind. So I think they might try to deliberately slow things down a little bit. Denver again playing a little bit loose, although it's a little bit looser when you're playing in game 5 with a 3-1 lead, as was the case with Golden State last night, as opposed to being in a game 6, and in this case on the road with a 3-2 lead, because you really can't afford a lot of mistakes. So I look for this one to be a deliberately played game. And of the 4 pregame options, side and total, the side and total in the Knicks, side and total in the Clippers, probably the only one of the 4 that I will play will be the under the Clippers.
Your analysis is right on. This is desperation time, and they're going to tighten up. Now we have some great athletes on the floor. I mean, all these pro teams are very athletic. You don't see it all season long with the intensity lacking, but here you do. I mean, Kawhi is absolutely amazing, and the Jokic. We all know who Jokic is, and amazing in every way, offense, defense, playmakers. I mean, it's incredible. But the thing that we don't know about is we have a new coach with Denver, and we don't, they fired their coach, even though he won the championship a couple of years ago. We don't know what this guy will do, and the in-game adjustments is always critical. But be that as it may, if you take it on the surface, this is going to be a war. Now, I wasn't trying to get away from that and talk about the next level of the other game in the Pacers and the Cavs, but Mark brought something up the other day. I'm talking about Mark Lawrence on our ATS show about how easily the Cavaliers won their first series. They swept, they won by 122 points, and there's a history of teams that win that easily in round 1 don't do well in round 2, and they are not going up against a muffin here. The Pacers can play, and they have a lot of offensive weapons that can make this a very interesting series. But as far as the Denver game, I agree with you, Andy. The under is the right side. And I guess since we're talking about it, I guess that's a free play for all the people out there because we just said we like. But as far as the Sunday game between the Cavs and the Pacers, I can't remember what the total was, but I know the Cavs opened 8. They were an 8-point favorite at home against the Pacers. That's a big number.
Total in the game is 227.5 open. Actually 226.5 at circa. Currently now 229.5 across the board. So they are playing the over, and the total and the side, as you mentioned, opened 8 and has stayed 8 virtually across the board. Now that not every place I'm showing on the screen has the line up for that game. That I think DraftKings shows 7.5 minus 12 on the favorite, which would understandably be so if the current line is 8 elsewhere. So that's the one I have not seen. Oh no, the Golden State line, by the way, for the Friday game, tomorrow's game, has Golden State opening in some places 4.5 up to 5, other places 5 and at 5. and total in that one is 203.5 to 204.
Not everybody follows the zigzag, but if you're looking at a zigzag and with the Warriors getting absolutely annihilated, mentally, physically, emotionally, everything in last night's game, well, it sure looks like the Warriors' game to come back and play. But can you lay the 5? I mean, when you get to Steph going, and you get Butler going, and then you get Draymond going, and they got the new guy. I can't say his last name, Pozinski or something like that. He's actually playing pretty well, which is kind of interesting because it gives them the third option, which has been missing on offense. And of course, Draymond, well, he started the game last night. He hit a couple threes from the top of the key. I said, "Oh my goodness!" It's like Westbrook the other night, and he was going crazy. And he never shoots well, and he was hitting everything. So you never know with these guys. They are pros, and they can turn it around. What is the? Have you seen anything at all that would indicate that this should not be a Warrior play?
I really haven't. I mean, I look at the Golden State's wins in the series. Of course, they opened with the 95-85 win in Houston in game 1, when they were actually bet up from a 1 to a 2-point underdog. And of course, that had to do with the home road situation, and Golden State was coming off that play-in game. Then, of course, Houston came back with convincing double-digit, I think, 15-point win in game 2. So in game 3, when they played the first game in Golden State, Warriors won that one by 11. They were bet down actually from 3 to 2 in that one, and that was an effort where you expected them to gain home court advantage, which they did, and then they followed it up with that 3-point win in game 4 this past Monday, and then of course the game the other night, the Wednesday, last night's game, the 15-point loss to Houston. So Golden State has been the better team. I think this line is probably about right. The question is, what happens in the end game situation? If it's a 6 to 8-point game, will Houston be able to make a run? I mean, it's their lack of shooting, their poor scoring ability that has really hurt them in this series. And of course, we know when Golden State goes on a run that they can score points in bunches. And I also wonder if last night Houston we knew was going to be play with great intensity at the start of that game. Their season was on the line, and I wonder how much of maybe we're getting a point or two of value with the Warriors because of how bad they looked last night, even though the game, it didn't, they would have liked to have won, but they knew they had 2 more chances to win if they lost last night. And the first one will be their best chance, which is the one tomorrow night on their home court. So maybe there's a little bit of a value in this game, even though there's been respect shown for Houston throughout the series. So I would tend to say, I haven't decided yet, but
I'm not hearing you. Did you?
I ended up on that. I said I'm certainly leaning towards Golden State tomorrow.
Have you seen a line on the? I mean, I know the Wolves are going to the next level. Who they playing and what? Have you seen anything, or you have any feeling on them?
I have not seen anything yet, but I know that coming into the postseason, they were one of the more disappointing teams in the regular season, especially following up what they had last year. When I actually had a nice future on them last year, and they were playing so well until they got eliminated, and of course now Cat is over with the Knicks, so that was a significant departure. But they played well coming down the stretch at the end of the season, and with Anthony there, Edwards, this is a team that has the leadership. They've got the ability, and they could be. I felt coming into the postseason they could be dangerous. Did I expect them to beat the Lakers in 5 games? Absolutely not. I thought that they had a chance if the series was extended because of their youth and their talent, and if they ended up going to a 7th game, even though it'd be in LA, they'd be the younger, fresher team. We never got that far. So I still am very high on Minnesota, but I want to see what happens as far as who their next opponent will be, as far as getting into the Western Conference championship round. I think that they're capable of. I think the only team that they're really not capable of beating is probably OKC. I think they could beat OKC.
OKC and Cavs and Celtics are monsters. There's no question. They are the three best teams. But we're starting to see other teams that didn't look.
And the Clippers, by the way, Clippers could also give them a battle. I think that'd be a great series if they met.
Yeah, we don't even know if the Clippers can get there. I mean, I did have the Clippers winning the series, and now that I see the play game to game, I can see that Denver is actually has not dropped off that much after losing their coach. They're still very capable with Gordon and Murray and Jokic. I mean, they're tough and they know how to win, and Jokic is at a different level. But now Kawhi coming back the way he looks like he did in Toronto, for God's sake. He really looks, he's always a great player, but he fell off with the injuries and stuff. It's going to be interesting.
When healthy, he's one of the. When healthy, he's one of the top players in the league.
Absolutely.
Problem
the question now is for the OKC and Cavs, did they win too easily? And that's where Mark Lawrence came back with that stat, which is something is concerning. So we'll have to see how that plays out on Sunday, but we got to get through the Thursday and the Friday games first and get to that point.
The two concerns about the Cleveland and OKC, which sort of lead to what Mark was talking about, that I think they were one game below 500 straight up in the second round after having those blowout 4-0 wins and a losing point spread record. And I think it results from two factors. Number one, you sweep a series 4-0, you've got to wait a week to 10 days before your next series begins. And so you're sort of a little bit of rusty. And number two, because of the ease with which you won that first series, you're going to probably be paying an extra price in the point. If you're as dominating as Cleveland and OKC have been, the public is going to react to that. They're going to go, that's true, which is not necessarily though, because of the all-time off, and they're going to be laying more because because basically you've cashed. If you win 4-0 the way that these teams did, you've cashed tickets in that opening round. Now we see the line Cleveland 8 against Indiana. Well, Indiana, didn't they lose to Boston in the Eastern Finals last year? It's not like they're an inexperienced team. I think that line is a little bit too high. Now, can I pull the trigger on Indiana? I don't know yet, but I think the normal line for this game, if Oklahoma City were if Cleveland were extended to, let's say, 6 games, I wonder what the line would be for this game. Maybe it would be 5.5 or 6.
Well, I agree with that. One of the things is, as the point spread goes, or not, as the total goes up, the point spread itself has less significance point per point, because now when you have that kind of a margin, if you're going to 229, 230, 235, something like that, 8 is a smaller percentage of that total. Therefore, the laying 8 is not as difficult as it would be, let's say, if the total was 212. So it's a bigger portion of the overall total. I'm sorry, Andy.
Yeah, it's easier for a team for a favorite, but the game when it was in. Yeah.
Yeah, you're chopping up a little bit. I'm having
yeah, and I was.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was getting the same thing from you. We were sort of talking over each other for a period of time here. The connection may not be.
That's because we're not hearing each other.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think that's it, because I'm getting. Yeah, okay. No, I was saying about your point about the importance of the points and the total is that it's easier for a favorite to cover 8 if the total is 230, or at least the theory is, than if the total is 215 or 2. Not going to be a higher scoring game than a lower scoring game. Right. A 5-point favorite is not the same if the total is 200 than if it's 215.
Correct. I see where we're having some audio problems, but we've covered, I think, Andy, we've covered most things. I just remind everybody, go to the channel, watch the Kentucky Derby video with John Hardoon, and Greg DePalma. Excellent job. And everybody out there, we really appreciate you following Proline TV on YouTube and watching our shows and commenting. We really appreciate that. Go there, subscribe, like, and make sure you click on the bell so the bells go off when we have something new, and you know that we're there, and you can watch our videos, current when they're current. Anyway, Andy, anything you want to add?
As soon as they're posted.
Pardon?
No, I think that's it. We're getting down to I think we're getting down to the good time of the season as these first round matchups end, and the better teams, at least based upon the results of these series, are going to survive, and that's what makes this Denver LA Clipper game, because I think both of those teams are capable of deep runs. I would, if Houston's managed to come back, I think they'd have to be taken seriously. And in the East, I think it's Cleveland and Boston. I think that's almost a foregone conclusion, although I would not put it past the Pacers if they somehow get by Cleveland. This is a team that's fun to watch, and they've got experience now.
Absolutely. It doesn't look like Boston's going to have as much trouble moving forward, much competition, I should say, moving forward as the Cavaliers will. Like I said, we're having some audio problems. But can you hear me, Andy?
Well, yeah. Boston, Detroit, or New York, yeah.
Right. Okay, everybody, thank you for watching and listening. And we'll be back tomorrow with a baseball show. We would have done a baseball show today. However, most of the games start early. So if we'd have done it, you might be watching it when the games are already being played. That makes no sense. So we'll do one tomorrow, which is Friday, and we'll cover the weekend and try to look at the matchups as best we can. And we might be able to touch on what happens tonight in the NBA as well. So we'll talk to you soon. And everybody, thank you for watching, your support, and everything else. Subscribe, like, make the bell ring, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I could not